Welcome to the No Te Rindas Intermediate English Podcast, home of the Tenaz Intermediate English app, disponible en noterrindaspodcast.us. Este es un podcast para hispanohablantes que quieren mejorar su comprensión auditiva del inglés de los Estados Unidos. Somos dos hermanos americanos con raíces mexicanas. Soy Gabo, o Gabe, aquí con mi hermano mayor Goyo, o Greg.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We have a very special guest today. We're going to jump right in. Gabe, who's our interviewee today?
Well, Goyo, today we'll be interviewing Ángel Del Valle, who is originally from Panama, and he is a mortgage and real estate specialist in the Atlanta, Georgia area, close to you. And Greg, you and I have known Ángel for many years. We're going to be talking to him about buying a home in the United States.
That's right. So we thought that it would be different enough, the process of buying a home in the United States from your country, wherever it is that you're listening from or you are from, that might be a fun episode to have. And that's one of our points of emphasis today. How is it different to buy a house in the United States from other countries? But the other point of emphasis is that we'll say things in Spanish and English regarding the loan process, regarding the purchase process of a home, because this is a show about English. And so you'll have a little bit of vocabulary help today in that process, as well as some idiomatic expressions that we hear along the way. One more point to make is that Ángel is not a podcaster, so that you may notice that his microphone does not sound like my microphone or Gabriel's microphone. But we think you'll be able to understand him, and you'll get extra points if you stay and listen until the end and take the quiz. Si te gusta escuchar nuestros episodios y si usas Android, puedes bajar nuestra app Tenaz Intermediate English gratis de Google Play. Brindamos enlaces en nuestra página noterrindaspodcast.us a todas las apps disponibles en ese momento. Si quieres practicar tu inglés con nosotros con novedad, visita noterrindaspodcast.us y haz un clic en la pestaña para aplicaciones. Gracias. We want to welcome our special guest today, Ángel Del Valle, who is going to tell us a little bit about himself. He is a longtime friend of mine, 20-something years. It's been a long time. And Ángel is in the real estate business in a couple of different ways. Ángel, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am from Panama. My mom was from Panama. My dad was from Spain. I came to the United States in 1987. So I've been here longer than in Panama. Well, I have two kids. One graduated from college in 6 days from the university. And the other one just finished his first year. I'm married. I currently work doing hipotecas, mortgages.
And you also have some background in selling homes as well. Is that right?
Yes, I also did real estate, bienes raíces, como por about 4 years or so. So I know both sides of the business pretty well.
Okay. So, oyentes, we're going to ask Ángel to talk about some key differences regarding the purchase of a home in the U.S. versus Spanish-speaking countries. So, vamos a empezar con el concepto de un abono inicial, Ángel, a down payment in English, a down payment. How much money would someone need to put as a down payment if they're purchasing a home in the United States?
Depends on several factors. Most of the customers I work with are first-time home buyers. Como yo les digo, compradores primerizos. And most of the time, they need to put 3% down. Okay, there are options to purchase with zero money down.
Wow.
Those are usually government programs, VA, Veteran Administration, and USDA.
So if a home costs $400,000, 3% of that would be $12,000. Is that, am I
correct?
Doing that math right in my head?
Correct. $12,000. That,
okay.
In most cases, that's what we would be shooting for.
Okay.
For that
so this would be the la meta, right? The goal.
La meta. Correct.
Okay. How is it that it can be that low, Ángel? That sounds like very little security for the company that's loaning the money. I mean, you're not showing very much of your own financial health, if you will, by giving so little money as you buy the house.
That's correct. Well, I don't know how things work that well in other countries, but in Panama, I've heard that you need to put 25% down or something like that to be able to purchase a home. So going back to the 400,000, I mean, you need to have $100,000 to be able to buy a house of that magnitude. That's not easy.
No.
Your payments would be your payments would be smaller, though. You would be financing less. So
that's correct.
Good thing, because you've just given every cent that you can scratch up, that you can dig up.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I understand in Panama, I guess other Latin American countries, the loan is for 15 years. Here is not. Here is for 30 years. I would say 95, 97% of the time.
Oh, so the periodo de préstamo es doble, más o menos.
Doble. Y eso hace that makes the payment more affordable.
Right.
So in Latin America, you put a lot of money, but then you have to pay quicker. So you have to pay bigger monthly payment.
Okay.
So going back to how someone can purchase only putting 3% down, there is a concept here in the United States called private mortgage insurance, PMI.
¿Cuál es? Seguro hipotecario privado, creo.
Or just MI, mortgage insurance.
Okay.
So what happens? There are companies that specialize on insuring the banks. So if someone puts 3% down, the buyer needs to purchase this type of insurance in behalf of the lender. All right? And it's part of the monthly payment.
So your payment goes up because you are paying insurance money so that if something goes wrong, the bank, the lender can still recover their investment or their risk. That's
right. And then they should not have any losses when they put the house back in the market. You know, they have to pay a realtor, probably need to fix something, and when they get that money from the mortgage insurance company, they should be able to make a profit. So, and obviously, the more you put down, the lower the MI. So if you put 10% down, you're going to pay less MI than if you put 3, or if you put 15, or you put 18. Now, if you get to 20, now there is no MI.
Okay, so that's another thing to say, is that al llegar a 20% del préstamo pagado, ya no tienes ¿cómo se llama? El seguro hipotecario privado.
Correct. So from the get-go, from the start, if you put 20% down, you don't have to purchase that mortgage insurance for the lender from the financial institution. All right.
Okay.
And also, as your house gains value and you bring the loan amount lower and lower every time you make a payment, when you figure out that you have 20% of equity or ganancia on the home, you can contact the lender and they will tell you the procedure to show or to prove that 20% of your house is clear, and then they drop that payment, that mortgage insurance payment from your mortgage payment.
Y disculpa, Ángel, lender. ¿Cómo se dice lender, tú crees?
El prestamista.
El prestamista. O sea, el prestamista te puede decir el procedimiento para dejar de pagar este seguro extra.
Claro que sí. Y hay leyes que garantizan que el banco, the lender, has to do the legwork to give you the opportunity to drop that monthly payment. That part
so the bank, the lender has to do the legwork. I love that. So the legwork is a phrase we use in English for when you're having to do something that takes effort and time. We would a lot of times call that legwork. So I might say, this is such a great party. I'm really happy that you made such a good birthday party for my brother. And I might tell his wife that. I might say, "Oh, Wendy, you made a beautiful party for Greg." And she might say, "Well, Lucas did all of the legwork." In other words, she would be saying Lucas, their son, is the one that did all of the behind the scenes work. So the lender has to do the legwork in this case by law. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
But the person has to approach the bank first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Going back to legwork, it sounds like there was a lot of running, legwork.
Yeah. Yes. I went to the gym today and I did a lot of leg work. Yeah. Yeah. And
I
was on the treadmill.
Squats.
Yeah.
Squats.
I was on the machine. I did squats. Yeah. I did the machines.
So I was just going to say, this is such a key concept in that it is such a wonderful program, because it allows you to buy a home for very little money down, if you are willing to buy insurance to help keep the bank or the lender from losing too much money if for some reason you can't pay the mortgage. Would you be willing, Angel, to explain PMI or MI just a little bit in Spanish, because this is such a key concept that makes home buying here in the United States possible. I just want to make sure we understand exactly what it is.
Ya, claro. Bueno, okay, so el seguro hipotecario. Si una persona va a comprar una casa aquí en los Estados Unidos y pone menos de 20% de abono inicial, ¿ok? El comprador tiene que, valga la redundancia, comprar el seguro hipotecario. Y este seguro hipotecario no beneficia al comprador directamente, sino beneficia al banco, a la institución financiera que está prestando la plata. Porque si alguien deja la casa tirada y deja de hacer los pagos, el banco va a reposeer la propiedad, va a contactar a la compañía de seguro hipotecario y va a cobrar una cantidad de dinero. Y con esa cantidad de dinero, el banco puede poner o va a poner la casa de nuevo en el mercado, la va a vender, no van a tener pérdidas. Entonces, ese es el concepto. Ahora, si yo compro una casa con un abono inicial de 3%, yo no tengo que pagar el seguro hipotecario por todo el tiempo que yo tenga el préstamo. Yo lo voy a pagar hasta que yo compruebe de que ya tengo 20% del valor de mi casa libre. Cuando yo pienso que llegué uno se fija en cuánto se están vendiendo las otras casas y cuánto debo, entonces uno dice, yo creo que debo 78% del valor de mi casa ahora mismo. Uno llama a la compañía financiera que le hizo la hipoteca y entonces ellos empiezan el procedimiento para determinar si estoy en lo correcto. Y si es cierto de que ya debo menos de 80% o menos del valor actual de mi casa en el momento en que llamo, sencillamente esa parte de mi pago mensual queda eliminada y me empiezo a ahorrar 150, 200, 250 dólares al mes. ¿Okay? Entonces, ese es uno de los motivos por los cuales aquí en los Estados Unidos, creo que alrededor del 66% de la población es dueña de casas, ¿correcto? Creo que es por ahí. Y porque se hace mucho más fácil comprar con 3% down que con 25% down.
Sí.
Creo que es la norma en Panamá y en otros países latinoamericanos.
Y quiero decir que según nuestra investigación, hay este tipo de seguro hipotecario en países hispanohablantes, pero no en todos y no es obligatorio. No es obligatorio usarlo. Entonces es menos popular y menos utilizado. Y específicamente he leído que existe en México y en España. Gabe, I'd like to ask you, you have purchased more than one home over your adult life. Do you remember the house that you bought where you did not have to use PMI for the first time?
Yes, only the home that I live in now it was the first time I was able to buy a home without having to purchase mortgage insurance, because I was fortunate enough to have inherited some money from Dad, and I took that money and put it down as a down payment on the house. So for the first and the difference, for a listener, the difference between if I had paid 18% down versus 20% down, the difference in the monthly payment was enormous. It was like the difference between paying $800 a month if I put 20% down and $980 a month if I put 18% down, even though that's such a similar amount of money to put towards the loan, or in this case, if you don't get to that magic 20%, you're going to have to buy some relatively expensive insurance to satisfy the lender, if I remember that concept correctly.
Yes, I think $200 a month. I remember that from years ago. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So you have to have an extra $200 a month because you did not put down an abono inicial tan grande.
But depending on how much you put down, the monthly payment varia.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put 3, you're going to pay more than someone who put 5. You're going to pay more than someone that put 10. And the other thing is that it's very competitive because there are like 10, 12 mortgage insurance companies. And if you fall into the hand of the wrong lender, they may charge you more because, they like to work with someone. But if you fall in the hands of a good lender, they're going to do the rate shopping for you, and they're going to give you the lowest mortgage insurance premium possible.
But they're going to shop the rate. Mm-hmm.
In the United States, if you're here in the United States and you're putting 3 down, ask your lender, did you find me the lowest mortgage insurance premium? Because I know some people don't do the legwork.
So we've talked about an abono inicial or down payment. We've talked about PMI or MI, seguro hipotecario privado. And we've talked a little bit about periodo de préstamo, which is 30 years almost always in the United States, although you can get a shorter period, 15 or 20 years, if you can afford the payment, because your payment will be much higher. I see another issue that comes to mind, Angel, is what is the interest rate? Because that is going to determine so much of how high your actual payment will be every month. What is the current 30-year interest rate in the United States?
It's around 7% right now. Yeah, but
and that's higher than it used to be, correct?
Well, during COVID, rates were low. For a 30-year mortgage, it was around 3. I remember doing loans for 2.75, and for 15, I did one under 2.
Wow.
I did under 2. So, but those were weird times that I don't think will happen again. And we don't want them to happen because something really bad would be taking place on planet Earth.
Yes.
So, but a 5, a 4.5, yeah, that's something that could happen. But 7, it's a little bit high right now.
So for comparison, at least as of today's date, the current interest rate in Panama is a little under 6%. In Mexico, it's 11.23%. And in Spain, it's 3.32%, according to our investigation. Of course, if you live in these countries, you know this information much better than we do. But that is not the only variable, obviously. How fast can someone purchase a home? How quickly can someone purchase a home in the United States?
Okay, so do you want to treat this from the perspective of a realtor or from the perspective of a mortgage lender like me?
So I see a house for sale on the street, and it has a sign, and I call the phone number on the sign. How easy or difficult is it going to be made for me? How difficult will it be for me if I have all of my finances in order to get into that house and get the other family out of that house?
Let's talk best case scenario.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say you love the house, you put an offer, they take it that same day. All right. So, and you have given me all your documentation. I pull your credit. I calculated your income. I have your assets. I mean, I have everything. I mean, you could be closing in a matter of 10 days.
Wow.
In a matter of 10 days, you could be closing. But the rule of thumb is about 30 days.
30.
About 30.
What's a rule of thumb, Gabe?
Oh, a rule of thumb is the way things normally are expected to happen, or the things that are customarily expected is the rule of thumb, is what we would say. So, I can't think of a great example. Can you think of an example of a rule of thumb that we might use in a different context, Goyo?
The rule of thumb is to eat 3 times a day. Would that work?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Right. So as a rule of thumb, most Americans eat 3 meals a day. instead of 2, for example. As a good rule of thumb, you should plan to buy 3 meals a day. Or
rule of thumb is that you should plan on going to lunch around 12 o'clock in the United States. That's a rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Y Ángel se traduce, no, para nada, no es posible traducirla como regla de pulgar. Eso no tiene sentido, ¿verdad?
Regla de dedo gordo.
Okay, doesn't exist. Okay, so 10 days, but usually 30 days, and probably lots of variety, right? Lots of variance between cases. Well,
I should say, I'm talking from the standpoint of the loan. When someone comes to me with a contract fully executed, the binding agreement, most of the time it takes about 30 days. And it's because there's so many variables to control that we need time. Someone needs to pay a few accounts to improve his credit score. That probably takes 10 days. There are repairs to negotiate on the contract, and so we need to hold the appraisal because we don't want the buyer to pay for the appraisals, and then the inspection doesn't go correctly. So those things kind of hold us back, and that's when the transaction goes all the way to 30 days.
Another question related to this is that if I want to secure permission to buy a house from someone, I want to show them that I am serious, but I don't have all of my loan documentation finished yet, which is completely understandable, completely normal. We have a concept in English called earnest money, which I think is called fianza or depósito de garantía in español. What would be a typical earnest money amount to show, hey, I want to buy your house? Or is it always negotiated?
Yeah, it's negotiated, but again, the rule of thumb is 1%.
Okay, 1%.
So going back to that $400,000 home, most realtors, real estate agents are going to put on the contract that the buyer is going to give a $4,000 earnest money. Va a poner $4,000 en juego. In other words, if they are not serious, if they don't work diligently on getting approved for the loan, they can lose $4,000. And that's all a buyer can lose. Nobody can sue or go after their savings or anything. Also, if they did an inspection, they're going to lose their money. If the appraisal was done, they're going to lose that money too. So,
¿Y cómo se dice appraisal? ¿Es la valoración?
El avalúo de la casa.
Okay.
550 a $700.
Okay. So earnest, the word earnest in English is not used very often, but it means sincere. It means good faith. Right. He's a very earnest individual would mean he's very sincere. He as an employee, he is a very earnest employee would mean, he's very serious and he takes his job seriously. So earnest money is something that you pay sometimes to the person you're buying the house from as a sign that you're serious and that you may need some time to get your loan and contractual things together. But it's saying, I'm serious about this. I'm sincere in my desire to buy this home, if I understand that right.
Yes.
I would also say it's not the same word as Ernesto, el nombre Ernest in English.
Spelling the same? No, it's not.
No, it's different. So Ernest, like the name Ernie in English, would be ERNEST. But Gabe's definition of earnest, like serious or earnest money in Angel's case, would be EARNEST, earnest.
No, for someone first language being Spanish, that's all something that it's always amazing.
Yes.
Different spellings, but the same pronunciation.
Yeah,
Not fair.
it's not fair at all. Yeah. Fair, FAIR, and not FARE. Oyentes, hay dos versiones de la palabra fair en inglés. Fair como justo y fair como costo. Como the fare for a taxi es el costo de usar el taxi. Entonces, pero son diferentes y se deletrean diferentemente también. Lo siento.
¿Cómo se deletrea feria?
¿Mande?
The word feria, English. Una feria.
FAIR, una feria.
Yeah. So that's the same spelling as justo or fair, but different from el costo de utilizar un recurso como fare, like the fare for a taxi cab or for a boat ride or what have you. So.
Okay, so FAIR. It's got two meanings at least.
Oh, yes, it does. It's also an old-fashioned way of saying that something is pretty or beautiful. She was a very fair woman would mean she was very pretty. But that's not used very much anymore. It's very antiquated.
Yes. Much like you, Gabo.
Like me.
And me, I think I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Well, we sure want to thank Ángel Del Valle for being our guest today. Ángel, how could someone get in touch with you if they wanted to talk to you more about these issues?
Okay. It's angel.delvalle@rate.com. angel.delvalle@rate.com.
Muy bien.
Fantástico. Thank you so much, Angel, for coming on the show with us.
Sí, gracias.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, we certainly want to thank Ángel Del Valle for his time and coming on the show to talk to us about purchasing a home. Now, can you remember some of what he said during his interview? What is sticking in your brain today? Let's find out. Hey, Gabe, what's the rule of thumb for the amount of time needed from purchasing a home to moving into that new home? Is it A, 6 months, B, 3 months, or C, 1 month?
The rule of thumb for the amount of time it normally takes from purchasing a home to moving in. Okay, so that would be the normal time. All right, so I have had to go through the home buying process recently, and I know that it didn't take 6 months. It was a fairly fast process, and didn't even take 3 months. That would be 90 days. So it seems like I paid my earnest money and then started the whole home buying process. And within about a month, I was able to move in. So I think I'm going to go with letter C, that the rule of thumb for the amount of time needed to move into a home is approximately a month.
That is correct. Well done. Question number 2. What allows a home buyer in the U.S. to buy or purchase a home using relatively little money for a down payment? You can put down so little money for a down payment in the United States. How is that possible? Is it because A, you bribe a government official, B, you use your car as security for the loan, called collateral, or C, you purchase private mortgage insurance, or PMI?
The thing that lets us buy a house without having to put a large amount of money in for a down payment. Okay, well, thank goodness we don't normally get away with bribing government officials. We're not expected to do that. It's not a customary part of our lives. Thank goodness. So it would not be bribing an official. Using the car as collateral is an interesting idea, but most of us, our cars, I know that my car is not worth enough to secure even a small down payment because I drive an old car. So I think the thing that allows a home buyer to buy a home for very little money as a down payment is that private mortgage insurance. Purchasing private mortgage insurance is what allows us to do that, because basically we're buying an insurance policy for the bank that says that if something goes wrong with our ability to pay, they don't lose everything. So I want to say C, PMI.
That is correct. Well done, sir. Well done. And our final question. What is the customary length of a mortgage for purchasing a home in the United States? How many years does one borrow money and pay it back to purchase a home in the United States? Is it A, 30 years, 30, B, 20 years, or C, 15 years?
Okay, so I remember Ángel saying that in Panama, it was typical to take out a 15-year mortgage, which to me seemed really short. But he also said that they customarily would put down 25%. So you'd put down a very large portion of the total purchase price of the home. But it is not 15 years. Now, my mother, I remember she got a 20-year mortgage, but it was because she was able to make a huge down payment on her home. So I remember thinking that was very unusual, that she was going to be able to have her house paid off in only 20 years. So I think the correct answer is A, 30 years.
You are correct. Being able to own your home after 30 years is part of the American dream.
Well, I stayed all the way through the end and took the quiz, so I think I deserve extra points, just like our oyentes do.
Okay, I have a candy bar here for you.
Oh,
it's your favorite kind. Hey, we want to thank our patrons. If you would like to become a patron of this show and help us to produce more episodes in the future, please go to www.patreon.com/No Te Rindas Podcast. There are benefits to becoming a patron, such as a shout out in the next episode, and you can receive printable text of both conversations and examples given on the show. We'd like to take a moment to shout out some cities that are showing persistence in listening to our show. Thank you so much for listening week after week. This week, we want to shout out Nashville, Tennessee.
Go Titans.
Helsinki, Finland. Barcelona, Spain. And Murfreesboro, Tennessee as well.
Thank you guys for listening. We also want to remind you to review us if on your podcast platform. For example, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, if you'd please take a moment and leave a review, that really helps us. And if you listen on something like Spotify, if you could give us a rating. Hopefully we deserve 5 estrellas, but we leave that up to you. Ratings and reviews help us to reach more listeners.
Finally, we want to mention our website, noteorindaspodcast.us, one more time, where you can find our social media links, our blog, and links to our apps on the Google Play Store. Remember, our app is called Tenaz Intermediate English, and it corresponds to our episodes. So it helps you to learn the English that we use on the show.
Well, I had a wonderful time getting to see and hear Ángel again. I know you see him fairly regularly, but since I live far away, I haven't seen him in many years. So it was great fun to hear his voice and to hear his Panamanian Spanish, which is very different than the Spanish I've been listening to in my studies recently. So that was fun. Really glad we did this, Greg.
Yeah, same here. And we, again, just one more time want to thank Ángel Del Valle for coming on the show and sharing his wisdom with us. Hey, Gabe, don't forget to pay your mortgage this month, please.
Don't worry. I have it on my calendar, and I won't miss a payment so that I can keep a roof over my head.
Yeah, because, there's no room for you over here at my house. You got to stay over there. But I love you.
All right. I love you. I hope we can do this again soon. And I had a great time today.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.